Hello chat friends and welcome to the Art of Chat channel and welcome back to our best chat games of all time series. So in this series we're following the best of the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history, and today I wanted to show a really brilliant game played by the legendary Paul Morphy back from 1859 against a player under the name Smotherer. I couldn't really find some additional info about this guy Smotherer. I'm not sure how old he was when he was playing against Paul Morphy. I'm not sure how strong he was when he was playing against Morphy, but still I wanted to cover this game because this game has again really some beautiful tactics, beautiful checkmate patterns that we love to see, of course. And Paul Morphy was really a similar attacker like Mikhail Tal. I think Paul Morphy always could have seen maybe the best continuation of in the game, but still he sometimes I think chooses to play the more attractive and the more complicated way, and that's why I decided to show this game. I think many times in this game Paul Morphy simply tried to spice things up by playing maybe even the worst move just in order to keep the game more and more complicated. So let's check out now the game. It's really brilliant attack here. E4 played by Paul Morphy, E5 by Smotherer, knight to F3, knight to C6, and now we have bishop to C4, knight to F6. We have so far the two knights defense of the Italian game, and now you can play of course the move knight to G5, but here Paul Morphy plays now the move D4, and after E takes D4 we have now the so-called Scotch gambit. And there are now several ways how you can make this game work, but if you for instance take out this pawn here, if you don't take the D pawn, then after knight to E4 white can also recapture the pawn here on E5. And now for instance if you try to break the position with the move D6, that's so much theory that I know that my father used to teach me when I studied the Scotch game or maybe the Italian game. So after move D6 there is now really a wild tactic. You can play this move bishop to F7. This wasn't played in the game, but I wanted to show you still some theory here. So after bishop to F7, king to F7, and now queen to D5 is here the opportunity. Here bishop to E6, and now queen to E4 would be an impossibility. And I think white has a decent game, although black is of course the bishop pair on the board, but still this endangered king has to be improved. Of course the king has to move maybe here to G8 or E8, and here maybe you can try to escape with H6, but as I said, in my opinion white is much better. We can play now normal development, bishop to E3, castling, knight to C3. I still think that white is much better. So here after move knight to E4, pardon me, let's go back here D4. As we said, we have E takes D4, so here Smotherer didn't take this pawn. After E takes D4 we have now castling by Paul Morphy, and now comes this idea knight to E4. Don't worry, so far for black nothing went wrong. This is still the main line of the Scotch gambit. Now rook to E1, D5, and now comes this very sharp line with the move bishop to D5. Still this is main line. Here queen to D5, and now knight to C3. This is the main tactical goal of white here, and I've played several times this game from black's perspective, and I really had good success. As I said, my father used to teach me this particular line, that I should not worry with this king, with this knight in the center, with the king in the center, because you can simply proceed here with the normal idea, queen to H5, and now knight to E4 is of course a possibility. And now the best way is simply to proceed bishop to E6, like here this guy Smotherer did. But here it's a problem. If you take with the rook, you shouldn't take with the rook here. Rook takes E4 would be a blunder for white, although it seems like an aggressive move because it comes with an attack against the king. But still after bishop to E7 you have to move your knight, and now you could maybe try this one, knight takes D4. But after queen to D1, knight to D1, knight takes D4, rook to D4, the game is more and more simplified, and suddenly I think black is much better because of the bishop pair. The bishop pair is now perfectly fine. We have pawns on both sides, so it means that the bishops are perfectly fine in this position. If the pawns would be maybe on one side, then I think it would be an equal game, but with the bishop pair on the board, black would be, as I said, much better, with opportunities to castle, with opportunities to play bishop to E6, maybe even trade off the rooks on the d file, getting this other rook on the d file. So this line is simply not good for white. So here, as said, knight to E4 is now the must move, with some of the threats of knight to F6, maybe discover attack against the king, and also to trap the queen. So that's why bishop to E6, you have to now play knight to G5. Still this position has been reached I think millions of times. Knight to G5, and now comes the first blunder here by this guy Smotherer. He plays now the move bishop to B4. Bishop to B4, huge blunder. The best way here is simply to proceed with queenside castling, and as I said, I've played many times when I started to play chess this position. There's nothing wrong with this line, knight to E6. Here after f takes E6 and rook takes E6, it seems so that that maybe white is slightly better, but actually it's not, because this pawn is very annoying. It's supported by the rook. The bishop's activity of white is not so good. You don't have so many good squares. Now in the continuation, I think here bishop to d6 is an opportunity, and black's main tactical goal, I won several games with this idea, to play something like rook to f8 and then sacrifice the rook here, rook takes f3, and then simply continuing the pressure here against this weak h2 pawn. So as said, here after move knight to g5, Smotherer made now a huge mistake. He played now the move bishop to b4, and that said, here I think Paul Morphy tried here really to spice up the position. He tries now a very risky sacrifice, rook takes e6. That's what I meant. He's trying to play the most attractive move, although here c3 is completely winning now after potential, I don't know, maybe d takes c3. Now you get knight to e6, and okay, black could proceed here with the idea c takes b2 with an attack against rook, but now you get this one, knight takes g7. You have to move. We can take out the queen. Maybe you can take out the rook with the promotion, but then you get bishop to h6. You see this covered attack, and also you lose the queen. So that's why you have to play something like king to g8, and now after queen takes a1, the game is basically lost. Queen to f6 will happen, and it's a checkmate. So that said, here in the game, rook to e6 was played c3. Here much better for Paul Morphy. Here after the move rook takes e6, he's basically giving his opponent so more chances now in the game. I'm sure that Paul Morphy saw the move c3, but rook to e6 is more attractive, is more dynamic, is really opening the position immediately. After the move rook to e6, here of course f takes e6, knight to e6. This move prevents at least now black from castling, so the knight is cutting off both of the squares, so no castling so far for black in the game. Queen to f7, and now knight to g5. Both of these knights are very dangerous, dancing in front of white's black's queen and black's king. Queen to e7, and now queen to e2, here played by Paul Morphy, and now bishop to d6. Bishop to d6, not the best of moves. Here I think black should have proceeded simply with the move king to d7. You have to get out of this tactical mess. You have to get out of white's attacking possibilities on the e file. Now after something like bishop to f4, king to c8 would be maybe a necessary move, although you will probably lose the battle around the square c7, but at least your king is not so endangered anymore. If you try here maybe a3 to kick away the bishop, bishop to d6, now bishop takes d6, c takes d6, and as said, still black needs to make many moves in order to improve his position, in order maybe to get this king somehow to the 7th rank, then connect the rooks, and then again maybe remove the king to the c8. But still, as I said, the evaluation is simply much better here for black. So as said, the only move here, king to d7, but Smotherer played here bishop to d6, and it's simply now a one-way ticket here. Paul Morphy tries, of course, this idea, knight takes g7. You cannot take the knight because of the pin by the queen against the king. So here king to d7, and now queen to g4, a very dangerous check. We have king to d8, and now knight to f7. Very tricky move here by Paul Morphy, and here Smotherer accepts the challenge. But now bishop to g5. Here Paul Morphy includes now all of his pieces in the attack, and here Smotherer was probably annoyed after bishop to e7 and now knight to e6. He was probably annoyed to get his king towards the center again with the move king to e8, but king to e8 is actually the only defensive move that black has to play. It's the only way to stay somehow into this game, because now after potential knight to c7, maybe king to d8 has to be played, and now I think white has to play a perpetual with knight to e6, and again knight to c7, because if you play here, for instance, if you take out the rook, it's not so good, because you get simply bishop to g5, and after queen takes g5, king to c8, and there's no way for this knight to escape anymore. I think in the next couple moves this knight can be taken, and suddenly black is continuing the game with an extra piece. So that's why I think in this particular position, here you see king to e8 a must move, and white can only hope for this perpetuals. But Smotherer played now a huge blunder. He played move king to c8, and it seems so that finally black escaped from this potential attacks by the rook. But this rook on a1 is not important anyway here. This is the checkmate pattern that Paul Morphy has prepared here. Here is the move knight to c5, and here after move king to b8, we have now a very nice checkmate pattern. It's the so-called Smotherer mate here with the move knight to d7, here king to c8, again knight to b6. If you of course go to d8, then you get here queen to d7 checkmate, so you are forced here to play king to b8, and now queen to c8, you have to take out with rook, and now knight to d7, a very brilliant smarter mate. So as said, this is simply Paul Morphy style. He could have played much easier moves, but he wanted to spice things up. He wanted to play now the most attractive continuations. You see how dangerous these positions are. You only one inaccuracy and basically the game is over. So as said, Schufer had his chances maybe to go into your perpetual, but he missed his chances, missed his defender chances, and got punished with this beautiful checkmate. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Really brilliant stuff by Paul Morphy. If you want to see more attractive games like this, please check out my other commented chess games, the best chess games of all time series. Here's the link of our playlist. And if you want to see maybe the engines battling it out in their best chess games, check out my commented chess games play by computer series. Here's also the link. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.